Hello, welcome back. This is Murali from Teaching for Good. We're looking at day 5 to create placeholder infrastructure for your app or the product or service that you have identified in the earlier steps. If you're just getting started, please go to the welcome page to review what we are trying to do as part of this challenge. And also please review the sprint plan. This is a 5-day plan where each day I have explained exactly what we will be working on along with the video for each day. So please make sure you review that sprint plan portion as well before you head down to day 5. Hopefully you are able to cruise through step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And today we are on step 5 or day 5, where we will be working on creating a placeholder infrastructure for your application or a service that you're trying to build as part of this challenge. The first thing that we would like to do is go ahead and create a repository for your code. I will be using GitHub, and most probably most of you are already familiar with GitHub as well. If you are not, go ahead and learn a little bit about repositories and just get hands dirty with playing with a sample repo in GitHub. GitHub is a great option of all the other options available in the market. So go ahead and use GitHub. But if you are already familiar with something else and you have been using it for a while, go ahead and use that as well. There are no hard and fast rules about just using GitHub as a choice. If you're starting, GitHub is a great choice, but if you're already using something else, please go ahead as well. The important part is to create a repository for your code and organize your code such a way that you can at least create separate folders for your applications. And we will be using just a single repo, or in the ecosystem referred to as a mono repo. That means just one repo to hold everything you need to build this product or service. And we could start with a mono repo, or if you prefer, you could have multiple repos as well. Feel free to choose any of those choices. My suggestion is to use a mono repo for this product or service for this challenge, which makes it really easy to maintain. But if you feel otherwise, please go ahead and use a different structure. And the next step is to go ahead and build that initial infrastructure. And before you build the initial infrastructure, you also have to choose a provider for hosting your infrastructure, like a public cloud provider, for instance. I will be using AWS for my exercise, but feel free to use any of the cloud providers. Use the public cloud providers for the moment. AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, whichever you're comfortable with. I will be using AWS precisely for the reason that I've been working on AWS for a while and very comfortable with all the service options and services available in AWS compared to others. And based on my work and experience, I also found out that AWS has the best choice of services that will help you to define your product and build the product from end to end. Comparatively, they have the best choices with respect to technology. So I will go with AWS, but go ahead and choose something of your own choice. And initially, even though we are just getting started, please do not go and create your infrastructure manually, either via the UI or console, or plainly using CLI. I would like to start using an infrastructure as a core tool that will help us to build the infrastructure. Remember, in yesterday's discussion, we talked about choosing an architecture as well as a cloud provider that makes it really easy for us to quickly and rapidly iterate and make changes. So it goes, that argument goes in line with choosing your infrastructure as a core tool as well, because we would be making quite a set quite an amount of changes in the infrastructure too. So that's why we wanted to have this infrastructure set up in a repeatable manner. You keep setting up an infrastructure, dismantling it, or making updates on a regular basis. So if you use console, it's really painful to take down or make changes and rebuild. So that's why I'm suggesting to use infrastructure as a core framework. My choice is, if you choose AWS, my choice is to go with AWS CDK. But if you're using other cloud providers, you can pick what works best there. Or the other option is, if you're familiar with Terraform, go ahead and use Terraform. Terraform itself has quite a bit of learning curve to understand and use it. So pick the tool that you're most comfortable with. And then we will build these placeholder services that we have identified on day 4 in architecture discussion. And then sorry, we'll create those placeholder services. It's just important to get started with the placeholder services that will do pretty much like a skeletal work. For example, if it is a web application, all we need is a coming soon page, the first page to welcome users, and then show them a coming soon page. And if and a backend API that probably will have the plumbing needed to host a REST API service, and a data store. We will identify a data model next week, and then start building the API services and then the UI as well. So for this week, all we need to do is just create those placeholder services. We don't need to build the entire page or entire app. We just need those placeholders for this week. Again, since there is an element of extra learning this week on this for this particular exercise to build the infrastructure, if you're not familiar with any kind of infrastructure as a code tools before, go ahead and pick AWS as your cloud and CDK as the tool of choice, which is a lot easier to learn and get started and get going, because CDK has what they call as constructs, which will help you to define your application at a much higher level. And that construct automatically brings in all kinds of cloud resources you need to build that service, using some of the best practices that AWS recommend when you're building infrastructure. So you don't need to learn all aspects of that. Instead, you get to pick some of the best practices that are already implemented as part of the construct. So it makes your life really easy, and you can get started quickly as well. So my choice is to go ahead and use AWS as your cloud and CDK as your infrastructure as a core, as a choice. And this also fits nicely into your repository structure. Just to create another folder for infrastructure and put your CDK code there. But as I said, you pick your own choice, and I will be using AWS and CDK for the case study, but you're free to go and pick other choices as well. So then we want to build a coming soon page, as I mentioned. If it is a web application or if it is a different kind of application, come up with whatever that placeholder looks like. And of course, deploy that app to the cloud and tada, celebrate. This is great week. If you're able to complete all the steps in 1, 2, 3, 4, and today, the infrastructure, which is day 5, this will allow you to have a great foundation to start building the product, and a pat on your back. You made a lot of progress already. If you have completed all these 5 steps, congratulations, and you are on the right track to go and build that real world modern product or service by building all the components needed as in full stack app solution. So congratulations and wish you all the best. If you're not able to finish earlier steps, take your time. It's, even though We are going with day one, day two, day three kind of aspects just to outline the process and activities. If and I understand there is a lot of learning on each day, and some of you may be familiar, some of you are not familiar with these concepts, which required you to go to do more research, learn a little bit more before you proceed. So take as much time as you need and learn about it and do it. You learn the best when you actually do it. So just don't watch a video or just read some blog item and then say, okay, this is all I need. I understood what's going on and what I need. So let me go ahead and move forward to the next step. Please stop. That is not going to help you at all. You must do it hands-on to be able to learn the full stack application, everything, every aspect of building a full stack application. So you will only learn by thinking about it and doing it on your own terms. Please don't copy paste code or run somebody else's code and assume that you understood and you're ready to move forward. You must do by yourself. You must code by yourself. It is perfectly fine to learn, read, and watch, but come back and actually do it yourself. That's exactly the reason why I have requested on day one to pick a product or service that you would like to build. Don't just use a sample application that somebody else has built. Instead, you must pick a product or service idea that you would like to build and do it yourself on every day. This is the best way to learn anything, specifically in the technology world. This is the best way to learn all the intricacies of building a full stack application. So with that, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you the next week with a plan for the next 5 days. And we will again work day by day. Next week, we will be building that MVP itself and deploy it and test with our real users. So we're just one more week away from building our first MVP, deploy it, and giving it to the end users. So please continue to learn, build, and deploy. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in next week. Bye-bye.